Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Tomorrow, San Diego County supervisors will consider a call for a humanitarian crisis involving migrants being dropped off at sites around the county. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. They're asking for federal assistance, and today, a local congressman got a look at the situation at one of those drop-off sites. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne has the story from Oceanside.
For the past 13 days, groups of migrants have been dropped off at the Oceanside Transit Station by Customs and Border Protection. They've been getting help from volunteers and nonprofits who've set up tables full of food and resources to help the disoriented migrants. That includes telling the migrants where they are, calling their sponsors, helping them book a flight and get them to the airport. All that has been laid on the shoulders of the local nonprofits and volunteers.
It's just not sustainable. We don't have the manpower, the woman power to get this thing done over the long term. We really need all local agencies to step in and be a partner. It's the only way that we keep this from becoming a humanitarian crisis.
Oceanside City Council member Eric Joyce says the county needs to lend some resources. To that, San Diego County Supervisor Jim Desmond said,
"We just don't have those resources, and the nonprofits, when I was in Oceanside, asked me for more money and funds, and I says, well, what homeless program do you want me to take that from? And they say, well, none. It's like, well, we don't have just extra money laying around."
Desmond said with no end in sight, the county can't take on funding something that is the federal government's responsibility. So at Tuesday's board meeting, Desmond and Chairwoman Nora Vargas are presenting a humanitarian crisis declaration to send to the federal government.
It's really a position that we're taking, to ask the federal government, don't go beyond your capacity here in San Diego County. And we're asking for funding, and we're asking for no lateral transfers. This is really more of an ask and a declaration. And it's really a declaration of a humanitarian crisis here, because it's not fair to the people that live near these transit centers or these drop-off sites, nor is it fair to the migrants. I mean, the first question they ask the migrants when they get off the bus is, where am I?
Desmond said another idea has been to work with Customs and Border Protection and the nonprofits to send the migrants to one location closer to the San Diego airport, rather than multiple transit centers throughout the county. Congressman Mike Levin got a first-hand look at the setup helping the migrants in Oceanside on Monday.
Everybody needs to do their part, and I think we all have a role to play. And at the federal level, what I think we need to do long-term is comprehensive immigration reform, acknowledge that our system is broken. In the near term, it's try to provide whatever funding that we can with whatever available resources are out there to try to help this region and this community.
But with a government shutdown looming this week, it might take some time for any resources to arrive. In the meantime, migrants continue to be dropped off, and volunteers are there to greet them. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
San Diego County Sheriff's Department is adopting a new strategy to improve its interactions with people with disabilities. KPBS reporter Katie Hyson has more on the Blue Envelope Initiative.
1 in 4 Americans have a disability. It can hinder their ability to communicate or comply with law enforcement who may not realize they have a disability. Diabetics with low blood sugar can mimic drunkenness. A deaf person may appear not to be obeying orders they can't hear. Someone with autism might avoid eye contact or run. Those misunderstandings can have serious consequences. Americans with disabilities, especially Black Americans, are much more likely to be arrested and killed by police. The Sheriff's Department plans to distribute free materials like buttons, lanyards, and seatbelt covers with a blue envelope logo. That logo signals to an officer that the person wearing it needs disability accommodations. A physical blue envelope can also be prepared with accommodation requests and commonly requested documents. County Board Vice Chair Tara Lawson-Remer, whose 4-year-old daughter is on the autism spectrum, says the program is an important step towards safety.
The Blue Envelope program will create greater understanding and shared respect between law enforcement and our neurodivergent neighbors. And it might even help save lives.
The Sheriff's Department rolled out additional training to officers and plans to launch the program October 16th. You don't need to register, just obtain the materials from a participating location. The sheriff hopes to expand the program to all emergency responder agencies in the county. Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
On September 25th, 1978, tragedy hit San Diego. A Pacific Southwest Airlines 727, just moments away from landing at Lindbergh Field, collided with a smaller plane and crashed to the ground in North Park. 144 people in the planes and on the ground were killed. KPBS reporter John Carroll is live in North Park, where, John, you've been looking into why 45 years later there's still no proper memorial to the victims.
That's right, Maya. We are at the northwest corner of Dwight and Nile, and as you can see around me here, there are all the victims' names written out in chalk, which happens every year. You'll meet the person that does that every year, a sister of one of the victims of that crash. All 144 of them out here with flowers to go along. And a man who witnessed the plane going down as a teenager puts up articles, and then you see other remembrances of various people right there on the fence. This image is forever seared into the memories of many San Diegans, one of 2 pictures taken by professional photographer Hans Wendt, who happened to have his camera around his neck as he was pumping gas a few blocks away.
PSA 182, Lindbergh 2, traffic 12 o'clock, 1 mile assessment.
A couple of minutes after that, the 727 and the Cessna collided. On the ground, Wendt looked up and saw fire.
The dome, the time.
We're going down. This is PSA. Okay, we'll call you equipment for you.
Exactly.
Seconds later, a plume of black smoke was billowing into the sky over North Park. The PSA jet smashed into the ground just north of the intersection of Dwight and Nile, killing all 135 people aboard. 7 people on the ground were killed, including 2 children. Both the pilot and passenger of the Cessna lost their lives. That plane crashed several blocks away.
So he was 18 years old.
We met a family member of one of the PSA passengers here where the jet hit.
My brother was starting his first day at UC San Diego. I'm his sister, and he was on the plane.
Myra Sulit-Pulowski's brother Michael had boarded PSA Flight 182 in Sacramento. Memories of that day are still vivid.
I was waiting for him at the airport to make sure that he could get on the plane, and he came back out and said, "I got the last seat on the plane." So that was the last time I saw him.
I was on a break between classes at St. Augustine High School, 4 blocks down the road.
Mike Bagnus had just started his sophomore year at St. Augustine's. 45 years later, and it's still difficult to get the words out about what he saw when he looked up.
I saw the fireball, and you could see the glow of the fire into the windows. You could feel the people screaming. It was horrible.
Seconds later, Bagnus says he felt a boom, a wave emanating out from the point of impact. Then, fear of another horror overtook him. His family home was at 33rd and Dwight, about a block from the crash site. At first, Bagnus says he didn't want to go home, afraid of what he would find. He first went to a friend's house, and there he saw something that wiped away his worst fears.
She had Channel 10 on, and Jack White was reporting from the neighbor's house across the street. And that's when I knew, oh, thank God.
Bagnus knew if that neighbor's house was standing, then his was too. Meantime, Myra Pulowski made her way down to San Diego. The coroner was never able to identify her brother's remains, but she has something else. She keeps it in this case with her brother's high school graduation picture. It's his wallet, found at the crash site, not damaged at all.
It was intact with his driver's license and his pictures and even $1, you know, in his wallet.
10 years ago, Myra, Michael, and several others formed a committee to finally place a proper memorial to those who lost their lives. Not that there aren't memorials now. The closest one is found here outside the North Park Library branch. It is under this tree dedicated to the lives of those lost that day. It's this rather small plaque, which doesn't have one name on it of anyone who perished that day. And there's another, larger memorial. It's here in the Air and Space Museum as part of their PSA exhibit, the history of San Diego's homegrown airline. Gone but not forgotten, a series of plaques, this one detailing all the lives lost on both airplanes and on the ground, and this one in memory of the 37 employees PSA lost on that day, but they're in a museum. They're not out there close to where it happened. Myra Pulowski, Michael Bagness, and everyone else who's worked for a proper memorial for years are tired of waiting.
Why isn't there one here? Why can't the politicians do that? Do I have to do it? They should do it.
None of us have a place to grieve. There's no cemetery. There's no headstone that I can say, you know, this is where I can pay my respects.
Now, a significant memorial is being put together not too far from here. It's at St. Augustine High School. This morning, the school unveiled artist renderings of the new memorial, which will be outside the gates of the school, so anyone can stop by whenever they'd like. It features a large series of black tiles that will be backlit at night and a plaque bearing the names of all who died that day. St. Augustine alumnus Stephen Smith was a San Diego firefighter back then. He was on the scene not long after the crash. He says even though the memorial is 45 years late, he's grateful that it's being done at all.
This is really outstanding, and it's really in a good spot for the future. And the school's going to be here for a long time, and so will the plaque.
Now, as far as placing a proper memorial as close to the crash site as possible, I asked a local politician about why, 45 years later, there's still nothing close to Dwight and Nile. This is Councilmember Stephen Whitburn's district, and tomorrow we will hear from him. You will definitely want to hear his answers to my questions. Live in North Park, John Carroll, KPBS News.
Thanks. Thanks, John. That was great reporting. One of the Navy's last Cold War-era cruisers has been decommissioned at Naval Base San Diego. USS Bunker Hill's 37 years in service came to an end on Friday. The warship was one of the first to attack Iraq with cruise missiles during the Persian War in 1991. And in 2010, the cruiser provided disaster relief following Haiti's devastating earthquake. 2 other ships of the same kind were also decommissioned last week. The rest are expected to be retired by the end of 2027. And Congress returns tomorrow to vote on major spending bills. As Mike Valerio reports, should lawmakers fail to pass a short-term spending bill, a shutdown could have enormous impacts on the economy.
5 days. That's the time left for members of Congress to reach an agreement. Both sides of the table at a standstill. Some lawmakers saying a government shutdown looks inevitable. A shutdown could cost the U.S. economy $6 billion a week and put a strain on millions of Americans.
We cannot go into government shutdown. I know this is a political thing. However, that's just cannot be an option because it does put the economy in a place where checks don't get sent out. You know, businesses start closing down.
If lawmakers fail to pass a federal funding bill this week, the impact on American consumers is significant. Major travel disruptions and public health risks as the EPA halts inspections at hazard waste sites and drinking water facilities. There could be food and housing impacts and museums and park closures. There's an even bigger impact on federal workers.
60% of the American workforce live from paycheck to paycheck. The people that I represent are no different. 1 week without a paycheck could be devastating.
So who's to blame? Congressman Tony Gonzalez says everyone.
House Republicans are to blame, Senate Democrats are to blame, and the president is to blame. And there's real people that are going to get hurt. Everyone thinks that they can just point the finger at someone else.
Well, you have to keep the government open. I mean, if people want to close the government, it only makes it weaker.
Mike Valerio, KPBS News.
More than 500 healthcare workers are striking at nearly 24 clinics across the state, including here in San Diego. Patient care technicians began striking outside clinics in El Cajon and Chula Vista early this morning. They work with patients who need kidney dialysis treatments. They're striking over what they say are unfair labor practices and working conditions.
This goes way back, way before COVID started. We were shorthanded working with where normally we do 1 to 4 patient ratio, but now it's been lately about 8 to 1. So imagine dealing with patients with low blood pressure, feeling nauseous, and maybe bleeding too, because we already pulled out every needle out of their arm. But then who do we help? Who do we save first?
More strikes are scheduled for tomorrow, with employees warning further action if a deal is not reached soon. And Hollywood writers are officially off the picket lines today and could be back at work as early as this week. Major studios and writers reached a tentative agreement on Sunday. Now it needs to be ratified by the Writers Guild members. Ivan Rodriguez explains what's next.
A crowd of Hollywood writers burst into celebration as word spreads of a tentative agreement with the major studios.
We're trying to save writers' ability to pay their rent, to pay for a mortgage, to put kids through school, to save for a rainy day.
It's a significant turning point for the nearly 5-month-long strike. Days of marathon negotiating sessions began last week once the CEOs of 4 major studios actively joined the conversation.
I feel like they realize, like, oh, I actually need to be present and actually hear what the writers and our workers are saying, because I don't think they really thought we were serious.
The deal still needs to be ratified, but the WGA released a statement saying they could authorize members to return to work before that, when leadership meets on Tuesday.
All right, everybody.
Daytime and late-night talk shows will likely be the first to return to your screens, but most other major productions will have to wait for their actors. SAG-AFTRA, representing about 160,000 actors, also hit the picket lines mid-July. There is hope that the studio's agreement with the writers will also allow it to reach a deal with the actors.
This is a really significant window of opportunity these next couple of weeks. If we were able to get back to the table and talk, there's a small possibility you could get things into production before the holidays.
I'm Ivan Rodriguez reporting.
The price of gas in San Diego County has topped $6. The average price for regular gas rose to more than $6.03 per gallon today. The price has risen nearly 66 cents over the past 21 days. A new campaign is asking the question, why North County? As KPBS North County reporter Alexander Wynn shows us, the goal is to attract more businesses to the region.
Up and down the 78 corridor and by the coast, businesses are thriving. From breweries to tech companies to manufacturing, North County's got it all.
Why North County is a great place to grow and to prosper.
Eric Bruvald is the CEO of the San Diego North Economic Development Council. The agency serves businesses north of State Route 56. He says one of the council's goals is to market the region for investments and show businesses the competitive advantage North County has to offer.
First and foremost, we're a great place for companies to find, retain, and grow talent and their workforce. From our great quality of life to a K-16 education system that's tightly integrated and works really well cooperatively to skill talent with the skills that they need to succeed in today's workplace.
Bruvald says North County's workforce is highly educated. With the proximity to Cal State San Marcos, Palomar, and Mira Costa College, nearly half the population has a bachelor's degree or higher, according to data from the Development Council. Bruvald says the 3 schools work closely to help their students thrive.
Our three presidents cooperate really closely, meet frequently, and really integrate their programs in a way so that students have a much more seamless path, and that means at the back end that companies can find the talent that they need.
And that's reflected in the growth of biotech, software, defense and transportation, and manufacturing industries, all of which have seen double-digit growth, according to the council. That's why the council last week launched an online marketing campaign called Why North County to attract more businesses to the region. This campaign is targeted at companies based in LA, Orange County, and the Bay Area, highlighting some of the advantages North County has to offer, such as plenty of manufacturing facilities. Burvo says there are affordable turnkey-ready manufacturing facilities in several North County industrial parks. He says the campaign's aim is to bring high-paying jobs to the area.
There have been golf manufacturers, GoPro, other active sports and leisure companies who have been able to be located in this area because that they get a better, closer relationship with their customers and with the kind of market that they're trying to serve.
Burvo says the synergy between the workforce, the lifestyle, and the collaborative nature of North County is why companies should consider relocating here. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
All right, let's start you off with your weather headlines, what you need to know. We are on a slight warming trend through Wednesday, so temperatures are going to rise a few degrees on the mercury. We are still dealing with night and morning clouds closer along the coast and the western valleys, though we are going to be turning cooler by Thursday. So the slight warm up isn't going to stick around for too long, but let's look ahead to tonight. We're dropping down to a low of 63 right around San Diego, and across the rest of the region, well, a little cooler in areas further north like Oceanside, dropping down to a low of 56, Ramona 50, and Borrego Springs dropping down to a low of 67. Now as we head into our Tuesday, well, we are going to be staying dry and overall not too shabby. We're going to start on that warming trend even more so as we head into Tuesday and then again through Wednesday. So that heat is on. We are going to start to see temperatures rise. I mean, we're in the upper 90s in areas like Borrego Springs, flirting with the triple digits, Ramona 85, and San Diego with the high of 74. It's going to be warm across a lot of southern and central California, and even hot across portions of southern California too as well. Your 5-day outlook along the coast, well, we're rising to the upper 70s, even flirting with 80 by Wednesday, but then we do turn slightly cooler. Temperatures will drop back down to the mid 70s as we head into Thursday, Friday, with rain and drizzle on the way for this weekend. Further inland, well, temperatures are going to stay in the 80s, and then we're going to dip as we head into Thursday back down to the 70s, and even the low 70s are on the way as we head into the beginning of the weekend with a shower in places. So we are going to see an increase in activity as we head into this weekend. Even windy conditions at times in areas like the mountains. Temperatures are going to rise to the 70s, and then we're going to dip back down to the 60s by Thursday, and even dropping down to the 50s by Saturday. Now along the desert as well, we're rising to the triple digits through Wednesday, and then we're back down to 90s by Thursday, and then even the upper 70s by Saturday. So a big cool down is on the way. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
If you've been waiting for an opportunity to try a new local food spot, now is a great time because San Diego Restaurant Week is here. Customers can enjoy 2-course lunches and 3-course dinner options starting at just $20. More than 100 restaurants are participating this year. Restaurant Week runs through Sunday. A biology lab at San Diego State is working with a NASA grant to write a recipe for guacamole that will travel to space. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge has the story of a guac mix that's made to be tasty and nutritious.
Vials of green liquid swirling in a San Diego State lab contain test samples of microalgae. Algae is the not-so-secret ingredient meant to bolster the guacamole with antioxidants, which protects space travelers from the high levels of radiation. On the spaceship, the food's got to travel light. The solution?
Our proposed project is to have like a powder mix, and then it will be hydrated in space, and then they will have the avocado.
You could say the avocado will be a space vehicle for the algae and its nutritional firepower. The project is aimed at diversifying the diet of astronauts, and scientists chose guacamole to try to lift their spirits. They say space guac is a fun food that makes you think of parties. PhD student Gabby Canto is part of the team.
This idea of mixing guacamole with microalgae was so interesting for me because I'm Mexican and guacamole is part of our diet, you know.
Postdoc Daniel Caro is from Colombia.
So Colombia, after Mexico, is also like a large producer of avocados. So I was thinking, okay, what is something fun, something good to eat, something that we can freeze dry, and something that is green? Because microalgae are green, and then avocados are green.
Though algae is eaten in some human cultures, it's not known for being tasty. The word bitter better describes it, but food science can help. Researcher Ali Raza does what he calls molecular sensory science. That means you can enhance the flavor of food, not with additives, but by chemically manipulating the compounds in it. He is advising Professor Zuniga's team to make algae go down a little easier.
Which is going to naturally enhance some amino acids and sugars in algae, and those are going to give us a good taste later on when we are going to add it in guacamole.
But are the astronauts going to have tortilla chips? Concoction at NASA's Human Research Program conference in Texas, where they almost certainly will have tortilla chips. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
Yeah, looks good. And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. KPBS Midday Edition exploring why journalism matters, including what the decline of local newsrooms means for our democracy. You can tune in at noon at KPBS FM, and you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.